Marcus had sworn to his daughter they'd never get involved in trouble again. But that night, when he found the woman in the police uniform lying in the dark alley, blood spreading beneath her jacket, the last thing she said wasn't, "Help me." It was, "Don't trust anyone, not even my own." Then she gripped his wrist tight, leaving a bloody number scrawled across his skin, 419. Marcus didn't know what it meant, but when he dialed 911, the voice on the other end asked, "Where are you?" And he heard a whisper behind the line, "We found him." He hung up because, in that moment, Marcus realized something horrifying. The people who were supposed to protect him might be the ones hunting him. And the number on his wrist wasn't just a clue, it was a death sentence. The streetlight above Marcus flickered before going dark completely. He stood frozen in the alley behind Morrison Street, phone still pressed to his ear, even though the line had gone dead. The woman's blood was cooling on his wrist, the number 419 smeared, but still visible in the dim glow from the bodega across the street. His hands were shaking, not from fear exactly, but from the sudden understanding that calling for help had been the worst mistake he could have made. For years, Marcus Webb had promised his daughter Lily they would stay invisible. No cops, no complications, just him and Lily starting over in Portland after everything that happened in Sacramento. He'd kept that promise through late rent payments, through the judgment in his landlord's eyes when he explained he was raising a 9-year-old alone, through every suspicious look from teachers who wondered why a single dad with a record was always working night shifts. But now, standing in an alley with a dying cop's final warning burned into his memory, that promise was ashes. Marcus wiped his wrist on his jacket, smearing the blood but not erasing it. The number seemed to glow in the darkness. 419. He'd seen those digits before, scrawled on the side of a dumpster near their apartment, spray painted on a telephone pole he passed on his way to work. He thought it was gang tags, just neighborhood noise he needed to ignore. Now he understood it was a breadcrumb trail, and he'd just stumbled onto the end of it. The woman, the Kina, died before he could ask her anything useful. Just those final words, that desperate grip on his wrist, and then nothing. Her badge reflected the distant streetlight, name engraved in small letters, Officer Sarah Mitchell. Her radio crackled once, a voice asking for her 20, but Marcus had already backed away. Touching her had been stupid. Calling 911 had been suicidal. He needed to move, needed to get home to Lily before whoever was listening to that dispatcher's frequency decided to come looking. Marcus's work van was parked 3 blocks away. He walked fast but not running, hands shoved in his pockets, head down. The streets were quiet, just the empty late-night sprawl of industrial Portland. Warehouses, shuttered shops, and the occasional homeless camp under an overpass. He forced himself to slow down, to breathe, to think. Lily was home alone. She'd been alone since he left for an emergency electrical job that turned out to be a bust. The client hadn't shown, which should have been his first warning, something was wrong. But he'd needed the money, needed it so badly he'd ignored every instinct screaming at him to turn around. The van started on the second try. Marcus pulled into traffic, checking his mirrors every few seconds. No headlights following, no police cruisers appearing from side streets. He took the long way home, winding through neighborhoods he barely knew, watching for patterns in the traffic that weren't there. By the time he pulled into his apartment complex, his jaw ached from clenching. Their building was a converted motel from the 70s, a long, narrow structure with external stairs and doors that opened directly onto the parking lot. Marcus lived on the second floor, Unit 214, which put them far from the manager's office and the security camera that may or may not have been working. He took the stairs 2 at a time and stopped at his door, key already in hand. The lock was still engaged. Good. He turned it quietly and stepped inside, closing the door behind him and throwing the deadbolt. Lily was asleep in her room, door half open the way she liked it, nightlight casting her shadow against the wall. Marcus stood in the hallway and watched her breathe, counting each rise and fall of her chest. She looked exactly like her mother when she slept. Same dark blonde hair spread across the pillow. Same small frown like she was solving problems in her dreams. Marcus's throat tightened. He'd promised Rachel before she died that Lily would never grow up scared. That promise was about to break along with all the others. He washed his hands in the kitchen sink, scrubbing until the blood was gone, and only the faint outline of the number remained. A ghost of a warning he couldn't quite erase. 419. He grabbed his laptop from the counter and sat at the small dining table. Screen glow the only light in the apartment. If he was going to figure out what that number meant, he had to start now before dawn and whatever consequences came with it. Sarah Mitchell wasn't hard to find online. Portland Police Bureau, 5 years on the force, decorated twice for community service. Her social media was sparse, mostly pictures of her K-9 partner and occasional posts about youth sports programs. Nothing controversial, nothing that screamed corruption or danger. But Marcus had learned a long time ago that the person you showed the world was never the whole story. He dug deeper, searching her name alongside keywords like investigation, internal affairs, complaint. Nothing came up. Either she was clean or someone had scrubbed her record. He tried the number instead. 419 Portland brought up hundreds of results, none of them useful. Then he remembered Sarah hadn't just said the number. She'd made him look at it, pressed it into his skin like it mattered more than her own life. Badge number. He searched Portland police badge numbers and found a database, unofficial but detailed. 419 belonged to an officer who died, James Crawford, killed in what the report called a training accident at the gun range. Single gunshot wound to the chest, ruled accidental discharge. Investigation closed quickly. Marcus leaned back in his chair, mind spinning. Sarah Mitchell, dying in an alley, pointing him toward a dead cop. What was the connection? He clicked through article after article about Crawford's death, reading between the lines of carefully worded police statements and bland obituaries. The man had been a 20-year veteran, well-liked, no history of complaints. But there was one detail buried in a community forum post from someone claiming to be Crawford's neighbor. The officer had been acting paranoid in the weeks before his death, talking about seeing things that didn't add up at work, asking questions his partner told him to drop. The sound of a car door closing outside made Marcus close the laptop. He moved to the window and peered through the blinds. A police cruiser had pulled into the lot, parked 3 spaces away from his van. 2 officers got out, both young, both scanning the building with the kind of casual attention that meant they were looking for something specific. Marcus stepped back from the window, pulse hammering. They couldn't be here for him. Not yet, unless someone had been listening to that 911 call, unless they'd been waiting for exactly that. The officers walked toward the building, flashlights cutting through the darkness. Marcus watched them check unit numbers, moving closer to the stairwell. He had maybe seconds before they reached his floor. He couldn't run. Running meant leaving Lily behind. But staying meant answering questions he couldn't afford to answer. He thought about Sarah's face, the way she looked at him in those final seconds, like she was begging him to understand something she didn't have time to explain. Don't trust anyone, not even my own. A knock at the door, firm but not aggressive. Portland Police, we need to ask you some questions about your vehicle. Marcus took a breath and opened the door, leaving the chain engaged. 2 faces stared back at him, one male, one female, both wearing expressions of professional courtesy that didn't quite reach their eyes. The male officer spoke first. Sorry to bother you this late. I'm Officer Blake. This is Officer Reeves. We're investigating a hit and run about 6 blocks from here. Witness said they saw a white work van fleeing the scene. Your vehicle matches the description. I've been home all night, Marcus said, keeping his voice steady. Van's been parked. Officer Reeves tilted her head slightly. You mind if we take a look at it, just to rule you out? I mind, Marcus said, meeting her gaze. You got a warrant? Blake's expression hardened. We're just trying to do our job, sir. You got something to hide? Everything, Marcus thought, but he said, I got a daughter sleeping 10 feet away and 2 cops knocking on my door in the middle of the night without a warrant. That's what I got. The officers exchanged a glance. Reeves pulled out a notepad. What's your name? Marcus Webb. Where do you work, Mr. Webb? I'm an electrician, independent contractor. What were you doing tonight? Marcus hesitated. Lying to cops was a bad habit he'd tried to break. But telling the truth meant putting himself in an alley with a dead officer, and that was a different kind of suicide. I was here asleep. Reeves wrote something down. Anybody verify that? My daughter, but like I said, she's 9 and she's sleeping. So maybe you could come back at a reasonable hour with an actual reason for being here. Blake took a step closer. You seem pretty defensive for someone with nothing to hide. You seem pretty interested in a hit and run that probably didn't happen, Marcus said, keeping his hand on the door. We done here? For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Blake smiled, the kind of smile that had nothing friendly behind it. We're done for now, but we'll be in touch, Mr. Webb. You have a good rest of your night. They walked away, footsteps echoing on the exterior stairs. Marcus waited until he heard their car doors close, then watched through the window as they pulled out of the lot. But they didn't leave. They parked across the street, headlights off, two shadows visible in the front seat, watching, waiting. Marcus closed the blinds and sat back down at the table. His hands were shaking again. They knew, maybe not everything, but enough to connect him to Sarah Mitchell, enough to put him at that alley, enough to start asking questions that would unravel everything. He needed help, real help, the kind he'd sworn he would never ask for again. He opened his laptop and searched for one more name, Detective Raymond Torres. They'd met years ago in Sacramento, back when Marcus was being questioned about a robbery he hadn't committed but couldn't prove. Torres had been the one good cop in a room full of people ready to file charges, the one who'd actually listened when Marcus explained he'd been home with his dying wife when the crime occurred. Torres had cleared him, even helped him find a lawyer when the DA tried to push forward anyway. Marcus hadn't spoken to him since moving to Portland, hadn't wanted to drag old debts into a new life, but now he was out of options. He found Torres's number in an old email and typed out a message, fingers hovering over the send button. What do you say to someone who saved you once when you need saving again? Marcus settled on the truth, or as much of it as he dared put in writing. Need to talk, not safe to call. Remember what you said about owing you a favor? I'm calling it in. The reply came fast, just 2 words. Where and when. Marcus met Torres at a diner near the waterfront, the kind of place that served breakfast around the clock and asked no questions about why a man might need coffee and eggs in the early hours. Torres looked older than Marcus remembered, grayer at the temples, lines around his eyes that suggested too many late nights and not enough sleep. But he still had that same steady quality, the sense that he'd seen enough darkness to not be surprised by any more. They sat in a corner booth, Torres with his back to the wall. He waited until the waitress had poured coffee and left before speaking. You look like hell, Marcus. Yeah, well, hell's been looking for me. Torres studied him over the rim of his mug. You said it wasn't safe to call. What does that mean? Marcus glanced around the diner, 2 truckers at the counter, an old woman reading a newspaper, nobody paying attention. He leaned forward and kept his voice low. I found a cop tonight, dying. She'd been shot. Before she went, she told me not to trust anyone in the department. Then I called 911 and heard something I shouldn't have. Torres set his coffee down carefully. What did you hear? Someone on the line saying they found me, like they were tracking the call. Torres pulled out his phone, typed something, eyes scanning the screen, then looked up at Marcus with an expression that confirmed every fear rattling around in his skull. Officer Sarah Mitchell, found dead in an alley off Morrison Street. No arrests, no suspects. Case is already being called a robbery gone wrong. He paused. You were there. I didn't shoot her. I know, but someone did, and now you're involved. Marcus rubbed his face. She gave me a number, 419. It's a badge number. Cop named Crawford who died. Training accident. Torres went very still. How do you know about Crawford? I looked him up. Seemed like the kind of accident that wasn't an accident. Listen to me carefully. Torres leaned across the table. Whatever you think you stumbled into, it's bigger than you understand. Crawford wasn't just a cop. He was internal affairs, investigating complaints about evidence tampering in narcotics cases. Before he died, he filed a report claiming he'd identified at least 3 officers involved in a theft and resale ring. The report disappeared. Crawford died. The investigation went away. And Sarah Mitchell, she was Crawford's partner before he transferred to internal affairs. She'd been asking questions about his death, quietly, carefully, but apparently not carefully enough. Marcus felt the walls of the diner closing in. So what? There's a corruption ring in the Portland PD and they're killing anyone who gets too close. I don't know, I'm Sacramento PD, not Portland, but I made some calls after you messaged me. Sarah Mitchell sent an email to a federal agent, a friend of mine. Sarah claims she had proof of the ring, names, dates, enough evidence to bring charges. She was supposed to meet with him soon. Torres paused. She never mentioned a number. She wrote it on my wrist in her blood. She wanted someone outside the department to have that information. Torres pulled out a pen and slid a napkin across the table. Write down everything you remember. Every detail from tonight. Where you found her, what she said, who showed up at your door, all of it. Marcus wrote, it took time to get it all down, the timeline of his night compressed into short, urgent sentences. When he finished, Torres folded the napkin and put it in his jacket pocket. I'm going to reach out to the Fed, but Marcus, you need to understand something. If there's a ring, if they're willing to kill cops to protect it, they're going to come after you. You're a witness. You're a liability. I didn't see anything. I don't know anything. You know enough, and they know you talked to Sarah before she died. That makes you dangerous. Marcus thought about Lily, asleep in her bed, dreaming about whatever 9-year-olds dream about, safe because she didn't know her father had just become a target. What do I do? You stay visible. Don't run. Don't hide. The more normal you act, the less reason they have to move against you immediately. Torres hesitated. If I were you, I'd make sure your daughter stays somewhere else for a few days. Somewhere they can't use her as leverage. The coffee in Marcus's stomach turned to acid. You think they'd go after her? I think desperate people do desperate things, and killing a cop makes you pretty damn desperate. Marcus drove home as the sun came up, mind spinning through scenarios that all ended badly. He couldn't send Lily away without explaining why, and explaining why meant scaring her, which was exactly what he'd promised never to do. But keeping her close meant risking her safety if Torres was right about how far these people would go. He was trapped between two failures, and dawn just made them both more visible. Lily was awake when he got home, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal and a look that said she knew something was wrong. Kids always knew. They could smell fear on adults the way dogs smelled storms coming. Marcus tried for a smile. Hey, Bug, you're up early. You didn't sleep, she said, not a question. I heard you leave in the middle of the night. Just had to check on a job. Dad, Lily set down her spoon. You're lying. You do that thing where you touch your ear when you're lying. Marcus hadn't known he did that. He dropped his hand. Yeah, okay, I'm lying, but it's complicated, and I don't want you to worry. Too late. Lily's eyes were too old for her age, a side effect of losing her mother and growing up watching her father try to hold their life together with duct tape and determination. What's going on? He sat down across from her, thought about all the ways he could deflect or distract, then decided she deserved better. I saw something last night, something I wasn't supposed to see, and now some people are worried I might talk about it. Are we in danger? The question was so direct, so clear, that Marcus couldn't soften it. Maybe, I don't know yet. But I need you to trust me, and I need you to do exactly what I say for the next few days. Can you do that? Lily nodded slowly. Are we leaving? Not yet, but I need you to stay home from school today, and I need you to pack a bag, just in case. In case of what? In case we need to go visit Aunt Caroline for a while. Lily's expression shuddered. She hated Caroline, Marcus's sister in Seattle, who smelled like menthol cigarettes and complained about everything. But she was family, and she was far away. And more importantly, she wasn't connected to anything happening in Portland. How long? I don't know, Bug. I'm working on it. You always say that. I always mean it. Lily looked at him for a long moment, then went back to her cereal, subject closed, the way she'd learned to close subjects when the answers were too scary to push for more. Marcus watched her eat and felt something crack in his chest. Years of keeping her safe, years of staying invisible, And it all came apart because he tried to help a dying woman in an alley. Rachel would have said that's what made him a good person. Marcus just felt tired. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Come to the address below. Come alone." Then a location in Northwest Portland's industrial area near the train yards. No signature, no explanation. Just the assumption that Marcus would know who it was and would show up. He deleted the message and stood. "I need to go out for a bit. You stay here. Door locked. Don't answer for anyone." "Dad, I mean it, Lily. Anyone knocks, you go to your room and you call 911. The irony of that instruction wasn't lost on him. Call the people who might be trying to kill me. But what other option did she have? Marcus grabbed his jacket and headed for the door, stopping only when Lily called after him. "Dad, be careful." "Always am, Bug." Another lie, he seemed to be collecting them. The address led to an abandoned warehouse. Chain link fence rusted through, weeds growing up through cracks in the concrete. Marcus parked a block away and approached on foot, eyes scanning for traps. The building had been empty for years, windows broken out, graffiti covering every surface, but there was a car parked around back. A black sedan with tinted windows, engine still warm. Marcus walked toward it slowly, hands visible, trying to project calm he absolutely did not feel. A man stepped out from the warehouse entrance, 50s, solid build, wearing jeans and a windbreaker that didn't quite hide the gun at his hip. He had the kind of face that had seen violence and hadn't blinked, weathered and watchful. "Marcus Webb, that's me. I'm Detective Frank Howard. I need to know what Sarah Mitchell told you before she died." Marcus stopped 10 feet away. "Why should I tell you anything?" "Because Sarah was my partner, because she was investigating the same thing I've been investigating, and because if you don't talk to me, the people who killed her are going to assume you know something and kill you too." "How do I know you're not one of them?" Howard pulled out his badge, tossed it to Marcus. "You don't, but Sarah trusted me. That's going to have to be enough." Marcus examined the badge. Detective Frank Howard, Portland PD, years on the force. He tossed it back. "She said not to trust anyone, not even her own people." She was right to say that. The ring is inside the department. 3 officers, maybe more. They've been running a protection racket for drug dealers, stealing evidence, reselling confiscated narcotics. Sarah got close enough to identify 2 of them. She was going to meet with a federal agent soon. "Torres told me." Howard's expression sharpened. "You talked to Torres?" "He's a friend from Sacramento." "Then you know more than you should, and that makes you even more dangerous than I thought." Howard walked closer, lowering his voice. "Listen to me. The people involved, they're not just corrupt. They're organized. They have connections, resources, ways of making problems disappear. James Crawford was a problem. Sarah Mitchell was a problem, and now you're a problem. I didn't ask to be. Doesn't matter, you are. The question is what we do about it." Marcus felt the weight of the day pressing down, exhaustion and fear mixing into something that made his head ache. "What do you want from me?" Sarah sent an email before she died. Evidence, files, everything she'd collected. But the email was encrypted, and she didn't tell anyone the password. I think she gave it to you. "She gave me a number, 409, Crawford's badge number." "I know, but maybe it's also a password." Howard pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly across the screen. He waited, then nodded. "It worked. She used 409 as the encryption key." He scrolled through whatever he was reading, face growing darker with each passing second. Jesus! She had recordings, audio of officers discussing deals, video of evidence being tampered with, bank records showing deposits that don't match salaries. This is enough to bring charges against 6 people. Then take it to your bosses. My bosses might be part of the problem. Sarah didn't trust anyone in command, and neither do I. Howard looked up. I'm taking this straight to the feds, but that means I need to disappear for a few days while they build a case, and you need to disappear with me, Fernando. Marcus shook his head. I have a daughter. Bring her. No, I'm not dragging her into this. You already did the moment you found Sarah. Howard's voice was flat, matter of fact. They know who you are, they know where you live, and they know you're a loose end. You want to protect your daughter? You get her somewhere safe, and you come with me until this is over. Every instinct Marcus had screamed at him to walk away, to grab Lily and run, to disappear the way they disappeared from Sacramento, to start over somewhere new with new names and new lives. But he'd been running for years, and the thing about running was you could never stop. Eventually, you ran out of places to hide. Maybe it was time to stand still and let the trouble catch up. I need to make a call. Howard handed him a burner phone. Make it fast. Marcus dialed Caroline's number, praying she'd pick up. She did, voice thick with sleep and irritation. Who is this? It's Marcus. I need a favor. Jesus, Marcus. I know, I'm sorry, but I need you to come get Lily today. Right now. What's going on? I can't explain, but she needs to stay with you for a few days, maybe longer. Marcus, you're scaring me. Good, be scared. Just come get her, please. Another pause. I'll leave soon. Thank you. Marcus hung up and handed the phone back to Howard. My sister's coming, then I'm yours. Howard nodded. We'll wait. But Marcus, once this starts, there's no going back. You understand that? Marcus understood. He'd understood the moment Sarah Mitchell grabbed his wrist and trusted him with her dying breath. Some things you couldn't walk away from, no matter how much you wanted to. Some things you had to see through to the end, even if the end was exactly what you were afraid of. They waited in the warehouse, Howard watching the street, Marcus watching the clock. Caroline's car pulled up outside the apartment complex, her familiar, irritated expression visible even from a distance. Marcus called Lily, told her to come downstairs with her bag, watched through the warehouse window as his daughter climbed into her aunt's car, looking small and scared and brave all at once. Carolyn drove away, Lily was safe, and Marcus was all in. Let's go, Howard said. Federal building, we meet the agent soon. They drove separately, Marcus following Howard through downtown Portland, weaving through traffic that was starting to thicken with morning commuters. The federal building was a concrete fortress, security checkpoints and cameras, and enough bureaucratic weight to make any criminal think twice. Howard parked in a garage across the street. Marcus pulled in beside him. They walked toward the building entrance together. Two men about to blow the lid off a corruption scandal that would shake the Portland Police Department to its foundation. They were halfway across the street when Marcus saw the car, black sedan, same model as Howard's, accelerating fast from the wrong direction. No time to shout, no time to run. Howard saw it too, shoved Marcus hard to the left. The car clipped Howard instead, sent him spinning into the air, body hitting the pavement with a sound Marcus would hear in nightmares for the rest of his life. The sedan didn't stop. It fishtailed around the corner and disappeared into traffic, leaving Howard motionless in the street and Marcus kneeling beside him, hands shaking, checking for a pulse he knew he wouldn't find. People were screaming, someone was calling 911, and Marcus realized with cold certainty that he'd just watched the last person who could help him die in front of his eyes. Marcus stood slowly, scanning the crowd, looking for faces that didn't belong. They were here, watching, making sure the message was clear. Stay quiet or die. Marcus met the eyes of a man in a gray suit standing near the federal building entrance, expensive sunglasses hiding his expression. The man smiled, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like he'd never existed at all. Marcus ran. He ran because staying meant answering questions from cops who might be part of the ring, ran because the feds wouldn't protect him without Howard to vouch for his story, ran because every survival instinct he had was screaming that he was next. He got to his van and drove, hands gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles went white. No destination in mind except away. His phone rang. Sharing, unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Then thought about Lily, safe with Caroline, and the possibility that maybe someone was calling to confirm she was okay. He hit the speaker button. Yeah, Mr. Webb, we need to talk. A man's voice, calm and professional. My name is Agent Robert Sullivan, FBI. I believe you were just involved in an incident involving Detective Frank Howard. Marcus's throat closed. How did you... I've been monitoring Howard's investigation. I know about Sarah Mitchell. I know about the corruption ring, and I know you're in danger. Sullivan paused. I can help you, but you need to come in. How do I know you're really FBI? You don't, but right now, I'm the only option you've got. Meet me at Powell's Books, main branch, second floor, travel section. Come alone. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone, mind racing through possibilities. It could be a trap, could be the ring pretending to be feds, luring him somewhere they could finish what they started. But Sullivan was right about one thing. Marcus didn't have options. Howard was dead, Torres was in Sacramento, and Marcus was a target with a target's lifespan measured in hours, not days. He drove to Powell's, the massive independent bookstore that took up an entire city block, parked 3 blocks away, and walked, scanning faces, looking for surveillance. The store was crowded, tourists and locals browsing shelves that stretched to the ceiling. Marcus took the stairs to the second floor, found the travel section, and pretended to examine a guide to Iceland while waiting for someone to approach. Mr. Webb, the man who appeared beside him, was younger than Marcus expected, maybe 40, wearing a suit that looked government issue and carrying a badge he displayed briefly before putting it away. Agent Sullivan, thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? Not really. Sullivan pulled a book off the shelf, opened it like he was reading. Detective Howard was going to give me evidence of corruption inside Portland PD. Now he's dead, and that evidence is gone, which means you're the only witness I've got. I'm not a witness. I found a dying cop, that's all. You found Officer Sarah Mitchell, who'd just been shot by someone in her own department. She gave you information before she died. Information that led you to Detective Howard. That makes you the linchpin of this entire case, whether you like it or not. Marcus set down the Iceland guide. What do you want? I want you to testify. Grand jury, federal charges, full immunity. You tell them everything you saw, everything Sarah and Howard told you, and we use that testimony to crack the ring wide open. And if I say no, Sullivan looked at him directly for the first time, then you're a loose end, and loose ends have a way of getting tied off permanently. So, testify or die, more or less. Marcus thought about Lily, safe in Seattle, building a life that didn't include her father getting murdered in an alley for knowing too much. Thought about Rachel, who'd believed in doing the right thing, even when the right thing cost you everything. Thought about Sarah Mitchell, bleeding out in the dark, trusting a stranger to finish what she'd started. What kind of immunity? Complete, anything you did, anything you saw, it all goes away, clean slate. I didn't do anything. I know, but the people we're going after, they'll try to make you look guilty. They'll claim you killed Sarah, killed Howard, made up the corruption story to cover your tracks. Immunity protects you from that. Sullivan closed his book. I can keep you safe, Mr. Webb, but only if you cooperate. Marcus wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that the system could work, that justice could win, that doing the right thing wouldn't get him killed. But he'd seen too much, lived through too many betrayals to take anything on faith. How do I know you're not part of the ring? You don't, but if I were, you'd already be dead. Sullivan pulled out a business card, handed it to Marcus. Think about it. You've got time. After that, I can't protect you. He walked away, disappearing into the maze of bookshelves. Marcus stood alone in the travel section, card in his hand, feeling the weight of a choice he'd already made the moment he called 911 in that alley. There was no walking away, no starting over. Just forward through whatever came next, hoping he'd survive long enough to see Lily again. He spent the night in a motel on the edge of town, a cheap place that rented by the hour and didn't ask for ID. He lay on a bed that smelled like bleach and cigarettes, staring at the ceiling, running through everything that had happened. Sarah Mitchell, James Crawford, Frank Howard, 3 dead cops, all connected by a corruption ring that stretched back years, and Marcus caught in the middle, the only one left alive who knew enough to bring them down. His phone buzzed, a text from Caroline. Lily's fine, asked about you, I told her you're working, she didn't believe me. Marcus typed back, tell her I'll call tomorrow, tell her I love her. She knows. Be careful, Marcus. He set the phone down and closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come. Instead, his mind played the same scene over and over. Sarah's hand gripping his wrist, the number written in blood, the whisper on the 911 line, "We found him." They'd been waiting for her to lead them to someone, and Marcus had walked right into the trap. But maybe that could work both ways. Marcus sat up, pulled out Sullivan's business card, dialed the number. The agent answered on the second ring. "Mr. Webb, have you made a decision?" "Yeah, I'll testify, but I want something in return." "I'm listening." "You said the ring has been operating for years. That means they've got procedures, routines, ways of communicating. If I'm going to be bait, I need to know what I'm walking into." Sullivan was quiet for a moment. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we don't wait for them to come after me. I'm suggesting we make them think I know more than I do, that I've got evidence, that I'm a threat they can't ignore. And when they come, you're waiting. That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. At least this way, I'm choosing the ground." Another pause. "Then what do you need?" "Access to Sarah's files, the ones Howard got from the encrypted email. I need to know names, details, enough to sound credible when I start making noise. And then I make a call to someone in the ring, someone high enough to panic, and I tell them I know everything and I'm going to the feds unless they meet with me." "They'll try to kill you." "Probably, but you'll have them on tape. Recorded conspiracy to commit murder. That's enough to make arrests, right?" Sullivan exhaled slowly. "This is the stupidest plan I've ever heard." "You got a better one?" "No, which is the only reason I'm going to say yes." Sullivan gave him an address, told him to be there soon. "But Marcus, if this goes wrong, if they figure out you're working with us, there's nothing I can do to save you." "I know." Marcus hung up and stared at the motel room ceiling. He just volunteered to be bait in a trap that could close on him instead of the people he was trying to catch. Rachel would have called him an idiot. Lily would have called him a hero. Marcus just felt tired, but he was committed now. No going back, only forward into whatever darkness waited. The FBI safe house was an unremarkable ranch home in a suburb that looked like every other suburb. Minivans, driveways, basketball hoops over garage doors. Sullivan met Marcus at the door, led him to a basement that had been converted into a command center. Computers, monitors, enough surveillance equipment to run a small war. "We've been tracking the ring," Sullivan explained, pulling up files on the main screen. "Sarah gave us 3 names before she died: Officer Blake, Officer Reeves, and their supervisor, Sergeant Peter Connolly." Marcus recognized 2 of the names. "Blake and Reeves came to my apartment the night Sarah died, said they were investigating a hit and run. They were checking to see if you'd talk. When you didn't, they reported back to Connolly that you weren't a threat." Sullivan clicked through more files, but Howard's death changed that. "Now they know you're connected, and they're going to want you silenced. And so I call Connolly, tell him I've got evidence, set up a meeting, and we record everything. Audio, video, enough to prove conspiracy." Sullivan pulled out a small device, no bigger than a button. "You'll wear a wire. We'll have agents in position. The moment Connolly makes a threat or admits to anything, we move in." Marcus took the wire, turned it over in his hand. It was lighter than he expected, almost nothing, but it felt like carrying a bomb. "What if he doesn't take the bait? Then we're back to square one, but I don't think that's going to happen. You're the last loose end. They need you gone." Sullivan met his eyes. "You sure you want to do this?" Marcus thought about Sarah dying in an alley, thought about Howard hit by a car in broad daylight, thought about James Crawford, killed for asking the wrong questions. All of them dead because they tried to do the right thing. He could run, could grab Lily and disappear somewhere the ring would never find them. But running meant looking over his shoulder forever, meant teaching his daughter that justice was for other people, that the bad guys always won. "I'm sure," Sullivan nodded. "Then let's get you ready." They spent time going over details, rehearsing what Marcus would say, how he'd react if Connolly pushed back or made threats. Sullivan coached him through staying calm, keeping his voice steady, not giving away that he was terrified. By the time they finished, Marcus felt like he was about to step onto a stage in front of an audience that wanted him dead. "You'll call from a burner phone," Sullivan said, handing him a device. Connolly's number is programmed in. You say you have evidence from Sarah Mitchell, you want to make a deal, and you'll meet him tonight at a location of his choosing. He'll want somewhere isolated, somewhere he can control. We'll have eyes on you the entire time. Marcus stared at the phone. One call, one conversation, and then either justice or a bullet. He hit dial before he could change his mind. 3 rings, then a voice, deep and authoritative. Connolly? Sergeant Connolly, my name is Marcus Webb. I need to talk to you about Officer Sarah Mitchell. A pause. Marcus could almost hear the calculations happening on the other end. Who gave you this number? Sarah did, before she died. She told me to call you if anything happened to her. I'm listening. She gave me files, evidence, audio recordings, video, bank statements, everything about your operation, and she told me if I didn't hear from her, I should take it to the feds. Connolly's breathing changed just slightly. What do you want? I want to make a deal. I give you the files, you leave me alone. My daughter and I disappear. You never hear from us again. How do I know you actually have anything? Marcus looked at Sullivan, who nodded. Badge 419, James Crawford. You killed him because he was getting too close. Then you killed Sarah because she figured out what you did, and last night you killed Detective Howard to keep him from giving the files to the feds. That close enough? Another pause, longer this time. When Connolly spoke again, his voice was colder. Where do you want to meet? You pick, but it has to be tonight. I'm not waiting around to be next. There's a warehouse on Terminal 4, Freight District. Come alone. I'll be there. Mr. Webb, if you're lying about having those files, if you're working with the police, I will find your daughter. I will make you watch me hurt her, and then I will kill you both. Do you understand? Marcus's hand tightened on the phone. I understand. The line went dead. Marcus set the phone down, hands shaking. Sullivan was already moving, typing commands, coordinating with agents. He took the bait. We've got time to get set up. He threatened my daughter. I heard, Sullivan said, looking up, which is why we're going to make sure he goes to prison for the rest of his life. Marcus nodded, but the rage burning in his chest didn't care about prison. It wanted blood. It wanted Connolly to feel the same fear Sarah felt, the same terror Howard must have experienced in those final seconds. But that wasn't justice. That was revenge. And Marcus had spent years teaching Lily that there was a difference. Let's finish this, he said. Terminal 4 was exactly the kind of place someone would pick to kill a witness. Abandoned warehouses, rusted shipping containers, no lights except the distant glow of the port facilities. Marcus arrived early, wire hidden under his shirt, FBI agents positioned in the shadows with night vision, and enough firepower to start a small war. Sullivan's voice crackled in his ear, quiet and steady. We've got you covered. Just get him talking. Marcus walked toward the designated warehouse, footsteps echoing on broken pavement. A car was parked inside, headlights on, illuminating a figure standing beside it. Sergeant Peter Connolly was exactly what Marcus expected. 50s, thick build, face that had spent decades learning how to intimidate people. He smiled as Marcus approached, the kind of smile that promised violence. Mr. Webb, you came alone. Like you said, Marcus stopped 10 feet away. You bring the money? Money? Connolly laughed. You think I'm paying you? That was the deal. The deal was I don't kill you, but that deal requires you actually having something worth trading. Connolly took a step forward. So let's see these files. Marcus pulled out a USB drive, held it up. Everything's on here. Audio, video, names, dates, enough to put you away for 20 years. Give it to me. First, I want your word. You leave my daughter alone. You leave me alone. We're done. Connolly's smile widened. My word? Marcus, you really are stupid, aren't you? He pulled a gun from his jacket, aimed it at Marcus's chest. There's no deal. There was never a deal. You're a witness, and witnesses don't get to walk away. Marcus raised his hand slowly. If you kill me, those files go to the FBI. I set up a dead man's switch. No, you didn't, because you're not that smart. Connolly cocked the gun. You're just a scared single dad who stuck his nose where it didn't belong. And now you're going to die for it. Not tonight. The voice came from behind Connolly. Sullivan stepped out of the shadows, gun drawn, badge visible. FBI, put the weapon down now. Connolly spun, but he was too slow. Agents appeared from every direction. Red laser sights painting his chest. Voices shouting commands. He dropped the gun, hands going up, face twisting with rage. You set me up! Marcus pulled the wire from under his shirt, held it up. We got everything. The threats, the admission, all of it. Connolly lunged toward Marcus, but agents tackled him before he got close, slamming him to the ground and cuffing him. He screamed obscenities, thrashing against the restraints, but it was over. Sullivan walked over to Marcus, holstering his weapon. That was good work. Marcus didn't feel good. He felt hollow, empty, like he'd just run a marathon and couldn't remember why he'd started. Blake and Reeves are being arrested as we speak. We had teams on them the moment Connolly confirmed their involvement. Sullivan paused. It's done, Marcus. The ring is finished. But it didn't feel finished. It felt like the beginning of something else, something Marcus couldn't name yet. He watched agents load Connolly into a vehicle, watched the warehouse clear out, watched Sullivan give orders to people who would write reports and build cases and make sure justice happened. And Marcus felt like a ghost, present, but not really there, floating through a reality that didn't quite fit anymore. What happens now, he asked. Now you go home, you get your daughter, you start over. Sullivan handed him a card different from the first one. If you need anything, call me. Witness protection, relocation, therapy, whatever you need, we'll make it happen. Marcus took the card, put it in his pocket. I just want my life back. I know, Sullivan said, looking tired, older than he had that morning. But Marcus, that life you had before, it's gone. What happened tonight, what you did, it changes things. You're going to have to figure out what comes next. Marcus nodded. He knew, had known since the moment Sarah Mitchell grabbed his wrist and made him part of something bigger than himself. You couldn't unknow what you knew, couldn't unsee what you'd seen, couldn't go back to normal when normal had been shattered. He drove to Seattle, hours of highway and darkness and silence. Caroline's house was lit up when he arrived, warm and safe, and everything Marcus had been trying to build for Lily since Rachel died. He knocked on the door. Caroline answered, took one look at him, and stepped aside. She's asleep upstairs. Marcus climbed the stairs, found Lily's room, stood in the doorway watching her breathe. She looked peaceful, innocent, untouched by everything that had happened. He wanted to keep her that way, wanted to protect her from knowing that her father had almost died tonight, that the world was full of people who would hurt children to protect their secrets, that justice was a fragile thing that required constant defense. But she was Rachel's daughter, strong, smart, and brave enough to handle the truth. So when she woke up, when she asked him where he'd been and what he'd done, Marcus would tell her, not everything, but enough to help her understand that sometimes doing the right thing meant risking everything, and sometimes you survived. Dad, Lily's voice soft and sleep rough. You're here. Marcus sat on the edge of her bed. I'm here, Bug. Are we safe now? He wanted to say yes, wanted to promise her that the danger was gone, that they could go home and forget this ever happened. But promises like that were what got you in trouble. So instead, he told her the truth. Yeah, we're safe. Lily sat up, wrapped her arms around him, held on tight. Marcus hugged her back, feeling the weight of the last hours finally crack open. He was exhausted. He was scared, but he was alive. And Lily was safe, and the people who'd killed Sarah Mitchell and Frank Howard and James Crawford were going to prison. That had to be enough. Caroline appeared in the doorway. You staying for a few days? No, we're going home. Home to Portland? Marcus thought about their apartment, the neighbors who'd seen police cars, the memories of that night in the alley. No, somewhere new, somewhere nobody knows us. Running again? Starting over, there's a difference. Carolyn didn't argue. She just nodded and left them alone. Two people trying to figure out how to build a life from pieces that didn't quite fit together anymore. Marcus held his daughter and stared at the wall, wondering what came next. Because Sullivan was right. The life he'd had was gone, and what replaced it, who he became after this, that was still being written. Months later, Marcus stood in front of a small house in Eugene, Oregon, keys in his hand, moving truck parked in the driveway. It wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, small yard, quiet neighborhood where people minded their own business. But it was theirs, clean title, paid in full with money from the FBI's Witness Assistance Program, no mortgage, no debt, no ties to Portland or Sacramento or any of the places they'd been running from. Lily explored the backyard, checking out the tree that was perfect for climbing, the shed that could be a fort, the garden space where they might grow vegetables if they figured out how. She looked happier than Marcus had seen her in months, lighter, like a weight had lifted. Maybe it had. Maybe knowing the truth, knowing her father had done something brave and survived, was better than all the lies he'd been telling to protect her. His phone rang, Sullivan's number. Marcus answered. Yeah, wanted to update you. Connolly pleaded guilty, 25 years, no parole. Blake and Reeves took deals, turned evidence on 3 more officers. The whole ring is done. Good. There's something else, Sullivan paused. We found a letter. Sarah Mitchell wrote it the night before she died, sealed it in an envelope addressed to whoever found her. It was in her desk at home. We just got around to opening it. Marcus's chest tightened. What did it say? She knew she was going to die. She'd figured out the ring was closing in, and she knew she couldn't run. So she wrote this letter explaining everything, all the evidence, all the proof, and at the end, she wrote, if someone finds me, if they try to help, protect them, they didn't ask for this. Don't let them die for being decent. Sullivan's voice was quiet. She was talking about you, Marcus. She was trying to protect you even after she was gone. Marcus closed his eyes. Thanks for telling me. You did good. Sarah would be proud. The line went dead. Jenna, Marcus stood in his new driveway in his new town, starting his new life, and thought about a woman he'd known for seconds who trusted him with her dying breath. She'd been right not to trust her department. She'd been right to fight, and maybe in some small way, Marcus had helped finish what she started. Dad, Lily called from the backyard. Come see. Marcus walked around the house, found his daughter standing under the tree, grinning. What? This is perfect. This is exactly what we needed. Marcus looked at the house, the yard, the quiet street that promised a future without fear. Yeah, Bug, I think you're right. They went inside together, started unpacking boxes, building a life that was theirs and nobody else's. And for the first time in years, Marcus Webb felt like maybe, just maybe, they were going to be okay. The running was over. The hiding was done. What came next was up to them. And that, more than anything, felt like freedom. The story of Marcus Webb and Officer Sarah Mitchell delivers a gripping lesson about the courage to uphold justice in the face of overwhelming danger. Marcus, a single father who vowed to keep his daughter, Lily, safe from trouble, found himself thrust into a deadly conspiracy after discovering a dying cop in an alley. Sarah's final words, "Don't trust anyone," and the number 419 scrawled in blood set Marcus on a perilous path, unraveling a corruption ring within the police force. Despite threats to his life and Lily's safety, Marcus chose to confront the danger, risking everything to expose the truth. His decision to become bait in a trap to catch the corrupt officers, driven by a promise to his late wife and a commitment to do what's right, shows that true bravery is acting despite fear, especially when it protects others. Sarah's sacrifice, entrusting a stranger with her fight, and Marcus's resolve to finish it, remind us that justice often demands personal sacrifice but can spark monumental change. This story urges us to stand firm against corruption, to trust our instincts when systems fail, and to honor those who fight for truth by carrying their torch forward. What does Marcus's courage inspire in you? Have you ever faced a moment where doing the right thing meant risking everything? Share your stories in the comments. We'd love to hear how you've stood up for justice. If this tale of bravery against all odds moved you, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join our community. Let's keep sharing stories that ignite our resolve to fight for what's right and protect those who need us most.